Okay, this is the 38th gene key. It's called the Warrior of Light. So the 38th shadow is struggle, a fight without purpose. The 38th shadow joins its programming partner, the 39th shadow, which is provocation. Let's just provoke, and then we can have a struggle. So they form a very heavy duo. This is ancient genetic programming based on individual survival. Both these shadows have strong connections with the animal kingdom through their role within the early hominid history. Before we begin an exploration of the darker side of this 38th gene key, one should hold the following perspective. Without either of these shadows, there would probably be no humans walking the earth today. This can be a very dark place within the genetic matrix because it represents a primal energy whose main instinct when threatened is aggression. In animals, this natural ferocity is embodied in the behavior of a mother when her cubs are threatened. As this aspect of DNA developed in human beings, it became the foundation of the evolutionary law of survival of the fittest. This gene key is also deeply connected to individual health and well-being. This same genetic wiring still influences all human beings today, regardless of how closely associated you are to the shadow. It is there in the collective energy field of humanity, and it is particularly strong when certain groups of human beings are threatened by other groups, manifesting strongly through its aggressive, reactive side. The 38th shadow likes and needs a fight, and the nature of this fight is dependent upon its frequency. At a low frequency, the shadow fights with others, with itself, and with life itself. It is, after all, called the shadow of struggle. This kind of struggle is very disempowering, both for the struggler and for anyone else who happens to get locked into the combat. The word locked here is very appropriate. That is the nature of this 38th gene key. You can see that the gift level is called perseverance, but at a lower frequency, this simply manifests as a stubborn persistence to fight, no matter what the outcome. When combined with its programming partner, the 39th shadow of provocation, the 38th shadow simply digs its teeth into someone or something and doesn't let go until that someone or something gives way. At a low frequency, this always causes some kind of destruction. Not. The shadow manifests in relationships when one or both people are not feeling fulfilled in their lives. Mm-hmm. The 38th shadow is about the battle to find a sense of purpose in life. And in this sense, it also has a strong magnetic connection to the 28th shadow of purposelessness. Create. By providing gaps in the pattern, you enable transformation to occur, and it's usually in these gaps that the answer to the struggle is resolved. You can actually see from these three shadows the 28th, which is purposelessness, the 38th, which is struggle, and the 39th, provocation. Purposelessness, struggle, and provocation. How struggle and resistance allow you to diagnose whether you're fulfilling the true purpose of your life. In that sense, they can be extremely useful. At a collective level, this 38th shadow has other manifestations in the world. The human addiction to struggle and violence is compounded through the pairing of the 38th and 39th shadows. These shadows see everything at a personal level. If there's no real alignment of purpose within a being, then the provocation carries a frequency that results in a very destructive dynamic in the relationship. These kinds of dynamics, which are very common in the world, gradually grind down the love within the relationship. and the fighting actually becomes an addictive need. Every relationship has its own inner purpose, but if the purpose of two individuals is not initially aligned, then the true nature of the relationship never has a chance to reveal itself. There's a great deal of sadness within this 38 shadow. If there is no real sense of purpose in your life, one of the chief events for this sadness is to channel it aggressively at those closest to you, usually members of your own family. Other than absolute necessity of living out your true purpose, there is a great secret to breaking the addictive patterns of struggle embodied in the 38th gene key. Simply take a breath. Struggle is a pattern that locks you into a certain breath pattern that makes you totally forget yourself, as well as rendering you deaf to all outside influence. It is as though an outside force has you in its possession and forces you to keep banging your head or someone else's against the wall. The moment you take a breath and pause, the pattern is broken, and a space arises in which you can reorient your energies. At low frequencies, the tighter you hang on to things, the more resistance which means that so much that resonates with going on in the world right now. And I came to that because I had read this yesterday. Just laying out there on the grass allowed me to come to it in my own way, because it's in me. History has shown that many great wars have been fought. Certain individuals in positions of power reacted aggressively to another individual reacts in an extremely aggressive manner without consideration of who might be hurt. Many innocents have been core of this individual need to struggle can only really be understood when it is viewed at an unconscious level. At the deepest level, struggle maintains the illusion of your separate identity. As long as you can fight, you can remain in control of your environment. This reflects the greatest human fear. If there is nothing left to fight, or you may cease to exist. It is the unconscious fear of death that prevents human beings from transcending their individuality. The 38th gift invites you to transcend your separateness through your individuality by means of serving a goal beyond yourself. But fear level, we never stop to take a breath. So it never enters into our awareness to use this terrific life ritual or tribe based on a personal agenda. The 38th shadow is not an archetype that thinks in any way threatened, it slaughtered because of the 38th shadow acting without taking pause to consider the logic or justice of its action force in a creative way. Thus, the whole energy of stubbornness and deafness within this gene key results in a planet where most of the world still has to struggle to survive. At the same time, the minority of people do not outwardly struggle. The developed countries continue to struggle internally through stresses of living lives without a strong sense of purpose. The repressive nature of the shadow is defeatist, and the majority of Western or developed world also holds this attitude. People simply do not have the perseverance to tackle the great issues, for example, world poverty, and this collective defeatism means that we do not even try. That's the repressive nature of the shadow defeatist. The defeatist attitude is, and the only reason I'm reading this is because I believe that everybody listening and watching this can relate, because it's happening in the world all around us. It's great to have it all laid out there so that you can understand it and you can persevere, which is what we're doing anyway. We are. This attitude is one pole of this archetype. It's what happens when the energy within this gene key collapses. Those with this kind of nature store an enormous amount of tension in their bodies. This tension results from their failure to direct their huge life force in a direction that serves a higher purpose than their own. These are people who, at some level deep inside themselves, have given up, resulting in a dampening of all enthusiasm for life. At its extremes, this becomes deep depression. These people tend not to project their misery outwardly, but internally blame themselves, thus locking the energy even deeper in their body. Unfortunately, there is no way that an outside influence can pull someone out of this state of shutdown. It takes a huge inner motivation within the individual to lift free of their own inner demons. However, once they find a cause worth fighting for, suddenly all that latent energy is released into the world and the tension leaves their being. The reactive nature is, of course, aggressive. Just as the repressive nature lacks the stomach for a fight, so the reactive nature cannot help fighting, yet always ends up fighting the wrong things and the wrong people. The reactive nature is about projection. These people who project all their anger and aggression onto others. They are the people who embody the very definition of struggle, the fight for no purpose. And having no sense of purpose, they are constantly locked in combat with other people in order to release the pent-up tension in their bodies. They actually become addicted to fighting as a means to discharge this tension they feel inside. Obviously, these people do not have successful and loving relationships. They get tyrannical and controlling. If, on the other hand, they are able to channel this aggression into some kind of higher purpose, then they immediately drop their aggressiveness and transform the shadow into the gift of perseverance. Isn't this lovely?
Yes, I love it.
And so perseverance is the indomitable spirit of the underdog. The only difference between the 38th shadow and the 38th gift is the nature of the fight. You only have to find the right fight and your whole experience of this gene key changes. As you pour your heart, body, and soul into a fulfilling fight, it ceases to be a struggle. Here you learn the difference between meeting obstacles and fighting resistance. Resistance is what occurs when you're pushing against the universal flow and is a hallmark of all the shadow states. Obstacles, however, are natural to the rhythm of life. Obstacles test your commitment and surrender, allowing you to forge new skills and hone your excellence. Obstacles are always gifts in disguise. The 38th gift is designed for obstacles. In fact, it loves them. Are someone with the 38th gift in your genetic profile, every obstacle is a wonderful and vital opportunity to feel more alive and fulfill your higher destiny.
And it's translating me.
This is remind you of everybody.
All of us, but yes, it reminds me of this morning, honey.
Yeah, I know. The 38th gene key is a gift of perseverance. This gift is a gift that really thrives when you are up against the odds. People with this gift make the impossible look effortless, even while exerting themselves fully. These people are extremely active and physical. They have a genetic need to push their bodies and love being right in the thick of action. As we saw in the 38th shadow, this is not a thinking archetype.
Nope.
These are people of action. The only trick for them is to know when to act and when not to act. And this is where the gift of perseverance comes into play. It knows when to hold its energy back. In other words, these are people who have learned to draw breath before they rush into some new action. This breath is not so that they can think. It is simply to make sure that they are responding from truth. rather than reacting from fear or anger. As with the 39th gift, the 38th gift has a strong link with the archetype of the warrior. In the modern world, the path of the warrior is not what it used to be. All kinds of new domains have appeared where this gene key is now played out. There are warriors in the business world, and government, education, science, arts. Wherever there is a fight for a higher purpose, especially against insurmountable odds, there you will find the 38th gift stretching itself to the limit. Where the 38th shadow is always fighting out of fear, and usually for survival, the 38th gift fights for love. In our modern world, the only domain for the 38th gift is the battle against the shadow frequency, which is the battle against the collective frequency of fear. The 38th gift does not think about what it is doing. It does not stop to consider how foolish its behavior may appear. It simply knows in its heart when something is right, and once it has committed its full energy to its appointed task, will never, never back down. Even so, this does not mean that such people are beyond fear, because they are not. However, the frequency of the gift level ensures that love wins over fear. The 38th gift is a part of a genetic codon family known as the Ring of Humanity. Each of these six gene keys in this group represent an archetypal aspect of the human story. In this story, the 38th gene key sets a pattern for all human struggle, the struggle of all form to reach spirit. In human beings, it is represented by the quest of the inner warrior of light against the dark forces of your lower nature. This is the quest or battle that stands behind all external human conflict. Perseverance is the most essential human attribute of the inner warrior, because the darker forces of human instinct are so deeply embedded in our nature. Thus, it is often through defeat that human beings learn to be stronger. Over time, through perseverance, love, and trust, you will eventually attain victory and experience your own divinity. People with the 38th gift become our heroes. These people take a stand, absorb all the obstacles along their path, and eventually win their battles, despite appearing to be the underdog. With the 38th gift comes the certainty of final victory. The only necessity is to find the right battles. For them, the right battles are those that empower others to stand up for themselves rather than remain victims of mass propaganda. There are two huge benefits to the collective that emerge from the manifestation of this 38th gift. The first is a great challenge to the collective fear. It says nothing is impossible if you stand up for what you believe in. The lives of people with a 38th gift are living proof of this. The second benefit is that the 38th gift also proves that you can fight a battle and win without resorting to violence and corruption. This does not mean the 38th gift is in any way soft. On the contrary, it can be fiercely aggressive in its service to a higher goal. The gift is a good thing to be in this gift, to be fighting for the right. Many of the qualities that may be perceived as negative in the 38th shadow become incredibly potent when they're put in service of a higher aspiration. Stubbornness can be an awesome quality when it's used to wear down a more powerful enemy. Aggression can be channeled into an appropriate force or used as a specific tactic at specific times. Even deafness can be wonderful when you need to edit out the negative propaganda of others. All of these qualities are fused together into the single word perseverance. What's more, a further aspect comes into play at the gift level that is lacking at the shadow level. Thrill. The experience of fighting a battle against the odds, but for a higher purpose, fills you with an indomitable spirit that feeds on itself and becomes stronger and stronger. At a certain level, this spirit enters into the realm of an extremely pure frequency, one that gives name to the 38th city, and that is wonder. In accordance with the 38th gene key, mostly I am fueled by my fear of rejection, and at the same time, I push people away. And it is usually the people who want to help me. Another internal struggle is my need to feel independent. It is hard to give away such a deeply ingrained pattern. My family system valued independence, and by that they meant get out of my hair. I tend to get tangled in the hair of those who love me and feel the struggle of independence versus the fear of rejection. The fear of rejection is the deepest and multi-generational.